like to welcome the Education Technical Advisor of Save the Children, Mr. Peter Fujuno. Please, can we put our hands together for Mr. Peter as he comes up? Please, can we do better? He's coming.
I would like to start with a brief narration of my current experience. So, I'm a humanitarian worker, an aid worker. I've been in, I think, for the past 15 years or so. I've worked in different contexts. I've been in the Northeast in so many remote locations where there's a lot of displacement because of insurgency. And also, I think I've been privileged to work in Adamawa State, Borno State, and also in Yobe State. I've been able to also transition to go to the South, where we had a lot of refugees. Now, you know, we have Cameroonian refugees in Nigeria, and it's quite interesting to know that these refugees are in our country struggling in crisis. If you go to the Northwest, you have banditry. And sadly, a lot of children have been displaced. We have young children who basically some are without their parents because of displacement. And all of this is sad to know that they struggle in their early age, in their early years. In fact, there are some children that till today, as we speak, they were given birth in the camp and they still live in the camp, going 9 years, 10 years. They don't know what is home for them. So the struggle is real. Well, we'll be hearing a lot from our panelists because I'm here to moderate this session that will talk about how do we finance early childhood development. Early childhood development, how do we finance it? How are we able to mobilize funds to support young children who are affected by this crisis? There are children, when you go to the refugees community, who in their 5 years of living, they've never eaten a boiled egg. Never. There are children who would trek long distances, less than 5 years, to come down to the first public schools around just to have learning, for them to access learning. And there are children who, believe you me, have never held a toy to just play with. These are issues that are affecting children. Is it sad? It's very, very sad, and it's real. Now, science says or proves that 90% of the human brain, is developed by the age of 5. And sadly, we have so many children who go through these early years without having the necessary values, ingredient, if you want to call it. Things that would ensure that they grow to become individuals that manage our lives tomorrow. So the future of Nigeria really, and in Africa, is in great distress because a lot of our children do not have access to these very limited opportunities. I want to invite my panelists, and as they come on the stage, I want you to give each each of them a resounding round of applause, because they will be talking about one of the major issues that affects us as individuals and as a country and Africa at large. How do we finance early childhood development? How do we finance early childhood development? Everyone seated here, let me tell you one simple truth. We have a lot of funding that comes for humanitarian aid in Nigeria and Africa, but only 1% of that funding goes to early childhood development. Does that surprise you? First on my list, I want to invite, let me go upstage, permit me. First on my list, I would like to I want to invite, she said she prefers to be called Zara. Please give her a round of applause. Zara Yeni, she is the Senior Social Development Specialist from World Bank. Please give her a round of applause. Thank you. I have also, Goni. Oh, thank you for correcting that. So, Zara Goni, coming from World Bank. Then I have Mr. Samuel Ajayi. Please give him a round of applause. He's the program manager for education, right? Sterling One Foundation. You are not giving them a round of applause. Thank you very much. Let's have Mrs. Tobi Ransomed, the education advisor from Plan. And then I would like to welcome on stage Miss Priscilla Ibadin. She is our early childhood development youth ambassador from Moving Minds Alliance. Please give her a round of applause. And then lastly, I want to invite Mr. Arome Agenyi, the national coordinator, Nigeria Coalition for Early Childhood Development in Crisis. Yes, our panelists. Nice to see you all. Early childhood development is a major issue. It's a concern. We are not getting the funding. I'll give you a quick evidence. I work for Save the Children International. We have so many education projects that we're currently implementing in several locations in Nigeria. And out of so many, over 7 or 8, only one project is focused on childhood development. Does that raise a concern? Why is that happening? Because we do not have the funding. The funding is not there. People don't regard early childhood development as a serious issue within the country. What we're going to be hearing from our panelists. And our first question to our panelists, let's hear from Zara. Why should government and financiers view early childhood development as one of the smartest economic investment they can make? Let's hear from her, please.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you all. First of all, we're truly honored. The World Bank is truly honored to be part of this discussion. And just so that you know, my name is Zara Goni. I'm a senior social development specialist. I'm actually sitting in for Dr. Ritgag, who unfortunately could not join the session today. So, as you know, the bank is a knowledge bank, and it does a lot of research and analytics. And one of we're doing at the moment, we're doing a lot on early childhood development, just to you know, institutionalize it and also find its relevance in our support to the government. So one of the things that we have found out in our analytics is that early childhood development actually strengthens human capital and increases productivity. It also promotes sustainable economic growth. I mean, we can't talk about economic growth without investing in early childhood or children below the ages from 0 to 8. So I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why we're behind this and why we're doing this and why investing in ECD is quite important and timely. One of the reasons through our analytics that we found out is that every naira invested in ECD generates several other nairas. So that's really, giving us higher earnings and higher productivity in the society. It also points, through our analytics, we have seen that children who receive early development, become better and positive citizens in the society. Now, one thing that is really interesting is also on healthier populations that we've noticed through our analytics, that we have very healthy populations once you begin to invest, particularly in health, nutrition at the early ages, that later in life, the population becomes really healthy and stable. Another thing that we found out is the reduce in social costs. That a positive mind is defined by the early years. What do we mean by this? That people begin to look at the world positively. And that reduces the social cost. So, crime, unemployment, other unaccepted behavior are really defined at the early years. And once you invest in those early years, then people tend to be more positive towards the life that they're living. And so it reduces the social costs. And these are based, and you all know that the bank really invests in research, like I said, in analytics. And then, of course, we can't talk about this without talking about breaking the cycle of poverty. So, yes, that early investing in young children, especially those from disadvantaged families, gives them a better chance to succeed and promotes social mobility. Now, I heard a lot of teachers are in this hall, and I want to point to, I think it was Eric Erickson, who is a psychologist, who defines, the stages of development. And he says that as you grow, you're supposed to be exposed to certain things in life. And if you miss that, then there is an impact, on your livelihood. And we are really studying Eric Erickson and Jean Piaget as far as early childhood development is concerned. And we're bringing that to the fore. And we believe that to have a society and to have a livable planet, we must invest. And this is in early childhood. And this is the time that we need to begin to do that. And I heard you talk about Maiduguri. I also grew up in Maiduguri. And when I go back home to see my nieces and nephews, they can't imagine a Maiduguri, a peaceful Maiduguri. So I remember once my nephew, 14-year-old, said to me, he said, "This road doesn't have sandbags. What's happening?" We grew up in Maiduguri without sandbags. Sandbags, he thinks sandbags is a way of life. But no, sandbags are there because of the insurgency. So it's very hard to preach to a 25-year-old boy who is growing in Maiduguri or who is in Maiduguri, that there's more to life than what he sees. Prior to joining the bank, I worked for the Lake Chad Basin Commission based in Jamena, and I was looking at young children in appalling situations. And we did a lot in the commission, from the commission and the Multinational Joint Task Force at the time, to promote, to ensure that nutrition, adequate health services, and education for IDPs in camps was given, was administered. And that's because we're looking at the society, the future society, and we don't want to make a mistake, moving forward. So investing in early turning human resources into human capital, this is the time. And the bank strongly endorses this and is happy to support any initiative in this regard. Thank you.
Beautiful. Now, one of the things that really worries me is the fact that I have been in some of these communities, and especially those children that are living in conflict. A child who at the first instant didn't have access to education. And over time, he's been able to get enrolled because of the kind of humanitarian support that came in. Now, this child goes through school, and in so many of those schools, at the age of 6, 7, before he gets enrolled, this child doesn't even know how to write his name. We have kids, some of us here, okay? A child of 5 years could write his name. Some of them, a lot of them could read. But surprisingly, a lot of children, especially those in crisis context at age 10, cannot even write, cannot even read, because they do not have access to quality education. Now, one of my question, a follow-on question to you, what would you say is the cost of not financing early childhood development?
So financing early childhood development cannot be overemphasized. But the way we finance it is what is important. And we have to be collaborative. We have to partner. We have to cooperate our responses. We have to harmonize our responses. There is no single individual or single donor who can support this mission. We have to come together. And that's why we say, when we work in FCV context, fragility, conflict, or violent context, how do we map out the stakeholders? Who does what? And this is where we come with this civil-military cooperation, CIMIC, or civil-military coordination. How do we reach the unreached? And that is super important for us to define at the beginning, because we need to work with the peace enforcers so that we can reach these children. There are children, you've heard a lot about the insurgency in the Sahel. How do we reach these children? We have to rest on assets, peace enforcers assets. Who does what and who takes what? Because regardless of the situation, we cannot move ahead without them, because they also contribute to our economy, and they also have a role, like a role to play. Exactly. in development. And the bank is very proactive in this. Like I said, we do a lot of analytics and research, and we have just rolled out and launched a new project Thursday called Sustainable Solutions for IDPs and Host Communities. And the main reason why that project came into being is really to address the needs of internally displaced persons, particularly children. Because we have realized that because the context is fragile, the institutions that respond to the needs of the people are also weak or non-existent. In conflict scenarios, you don't even have So a primary health center, ideally managed by a CHU, but it's probably just somebody who has an apprentice in a conflict setting. So how do we utilize other assets that we can all come together and ensure that we're reaching out to the people that need us most? The bank is a group. So while I work for IBRD, there's also the arm of the bank, the IFC, which deals with the private sector. And we're currently collaborating with the private sector and other non-governmental organizations to see how we're going to harmonize the response. Because when some stakeholders are very good at maybe technical response, some are good at strategic response, operational or tactical response. So the collaboration is vital, particularly at this time, because we recognize and we realize that we cannot do it alone. We must use the peace enforcers and their assets.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that insight. Now, I was privileged to work with the corporate social responsibility of a sector, particularly here in Lagos, I think over the last 2 years. So one of my concern, when private companies or individuals want to provide response, especially for people in need, early childhood development has never taken center stage. Never. You would see these resources will go to either building schools, community schools, providing food, and so forth. I want to come to Mr. Samuel on this particular issue. What role can the private sector play in transforming financing for young children living in crisis?
Yes, thank you very much, moderator. I think the private sector are already doing a lot. Where the gap is connecting the private sector to scale. You have rightly mentioned that the private sector invests in different things, and before now, their investment is limited to providing those supplies, and they step back. They hardly ask you for report or feedback. Even when you share, they are just interested in the numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah. How many are you able to reach? And that will be all. But I think over time, things are beginning to change. They are beginning to ask a bigger question around what exactly has changed. And I also want to quickly touch on why the focus is not so much on the early child. Because there's limited interest in that sector, not because they don't want to be interested, but they need more information.
They need more information.
Yes. And I think that is what this platform is providing. A number of them are here, and I believe that they are already interested in channeling their investment towards that area. The Study One Foundation set up the Business Coalition for Education majorly for this purpose. We're already in crisis, but there are bigger crises that are already happening that we're probably not paying attention to. One of them is the workforce crisis. Mm-hmm. The first session generously articulated the cost and made a case for it. But I think at this stage, we will now begin to channel our resources towards this stage of development, because you've also mentioned that brain development happens before age 5. Not because they do not have this information, probably not paying attention to it in that sense. Private sector are business people. and they want to invest where they will get the highest return. So I'm sure that the first session already provided that context to them. They should be seeing investment in education not as social corporate responsibility, but as social corporate investment. For Sterling One Foundation, that is what we have taken on. And we are currently mobilizing the private sector to see this beyond CSR and be more intentional in investing where the priorities are. The different levels of investment in BCE starts from the foundational learning up to the workforce development stage. It's something of joy to us that we already partnering with Moving Minds, and there's a lot that we can do together after this session. The private sector that are here are also very willing, and that is why they are in the room. So it's about communicating these issues to them and making them see the reason why investing in this sector is critical, not just for the children, but also for their business. Because a well-brought-up children are those that will contribute to their business, are those that will buy their products, are those that will make the nation work. One of the factors that defines underdeveloped countries is the highest number of unproductive population. So if we can address this from the foundation, we are able to turn out productive young people early enough. It's a good business for the private sector. And I believe they are realizing that. So it is not about the cost of investing. It is more about the cost of not investing. Because
Beautiful.
we have a lot to lose by not investing in that.
Beautiful. I want to pick up
stage.
from that very last point you mentioned. You know, what is the cost of not investing? What is the cost of not investing? You know, many a times we assume that, okay, like I'm talking about prioritizing, where the private sector or through their corporate social responsibility would want to invest where their return on investment is. Now, I've had first-hand experience with that, where if you come with some ideas and say, these are the issues, we need to come in to provide support. The first question that will be asked, what is our business? Do we have a business there? Do we have anything running there? In fact, I would say that it gets to an extent where some of the private sector would say, what is the distance between what you want to invest and where we operate? What is the distance? Now calculating the distance. And what you mentioned is the cost of not investing. If you go in some of the young children that are being rehabilitated, who joined insurgency, majority of them as old as 18, 19 have never stepped their foot in school. They've never been in school. And these individuals are the ones that will trouble our tomorrow if we do not protect our today. And that is to say that if we must assure our future generation, our young children, those yet unborn, if we must give them a society, then there is a need for us to be intentional about investment. And I thank you for that. Now I'll come to you, Madam Tobi. I know we have been within the same sector for quite a long time. We've worked together. We've tried to respond to the needs of children. I want you to tell us your experience working in the crisis-affected communities. What investment do you think have the greatest impact on young children and their future learning? Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Peter and Zara and Samuel. I think some of the investments, that we need to make that should be prioritized when it comes to early childhood development in crisis involves or goes beyond access to learning or access to education. And that's because children in crisis context face a myriad of challenges. It's not just about the fact that they do not have access to education or their schooling has been stopped, but they've also faced traumatizing situations. So you have issues of protection, issues of safeguarding, safety and security, issues of malnutrition, where you have severe and acute malnutrition, access to health and the likes of it. And as such, if we're looking at interventions that should be prioritized, it has to be an integrated or holistic intervention, and it has to go beyond education. And so we have to look at support to caregivers and parents. They are the first contact for children in their early years, right? And research has shown that when parents are supported adequately to work with their children, it has positive impact on the learners. And then we cannot discount quality early years education. And it doesn't have to be a school per se, right? It can be within a primary healthcare center. It can be in the communities. But at the end of the day, it should also be linked to schools where the children can transition easily into primary school education and continue their learning. And then we should also look at nutrition. It is very sad when Peter was sharing his experience and mentioned that their children, 5 years, 10 years, they've never eaten an egg. And that is the reality. And then with the increased cost of living in Nigeria, even beyond the crisis context, we know that cost of food and livelihood has increased as well. If we do not look at nutrition and address it, it is also going to impact on the early years of the children. And so a child that is hungry, a child that is not being fed properly, the adequate nutritional content that the child needs, then the child will not develop properly. And then health, of course, we have to look at health. So basically, these are some of the interventions that should be prioritized. We should not treat interventions for early childhood development in crisis in silos, because that's what we've been doing before. It's either we're setting up learning centers in IDP camps, but we're not looking at other aspects. We're not looking at how well they're doing at home. We're not looking at the protective environment. And so we need to move beyond the siloed interventions and look at low-cost community, low-cost or community-tested and, scalable solutions. So these are some of the interventions that should be prioritized when we're looking at early childhood development in crisis. Thank you.
Wow, that's quite insightful. When you go to some of the crisis community, you would see a child that looks like a 6-year-old child. But believe you me, if you ask that child, how old are you? You will hear 10, 11. And you'll be like, how? Now, you understand that this is definitely a child who grew up having difficulty or not having access to so many things. I like the fact that you mentioned about health, some of the health issues. Now, I wanted you to shed more light. Beyond health and nutrition, how important is nutrition to ensuring that every child develops and be able to attain the development required of that child? In your own opinion.
Okay, so from my experience and also the work that we're doing in Plan International in crisis contexts such as Northeast, Northwestern Nigeria, and also gradually just spreading across, because unfortunately, crisis right now is not just relegated to one particular context in Nigeria. So from our experience, we see that nutrition is very important. There's severe and acute malnutrition that causes stunted growth in children, and also affects their ability to learn, to assimilate, to also even pay attention in the classroom.
Exactly.
And then when you bring it down to children in their early years, where we know that their attention span is very limited and the teacher would have to wear so many hats just to get them. I am coming from the background of being an early years teacher. And so I know sometimes, the gymnastics we have to do in the classroom just to get their attention. But then you have a child that is hungry, that is not properly, that is malnourished. It's very difficult to get whatever message it is that you want to do that. So you have issues of stunted growth and unfortunately also even to increased mortality rates, in this context. So nutrition cannot be overemphasized. Nutrition cannot be swept under the carpet when we're talking about early childhood development in crisis. And even just in general, we have to start looking at that holistically and not just treat it as children coming to school in their early years, having the opportunity to play and learn, but just looking at their development holistically.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. I want to come to Miss Priscilla. The youth, our youth ambassador. We want to talk to the private and the public space. We want to see more funding comes for early childhood development. And I want to ask you, how can young leaders help transform public and private investment in young children?
Thank you so very much. Foremost, I must commend the previous speakers. I can even say, they've said it all. But one of the perks of being an ambassador for Theirworld is that you advocate for these things. So in response to your question, how can young people, it's more like a cascade project. I come on here and I say, okay, everybody knows that there is a crisis. Everybody knows what they call it. But then the particular emphasis on children from 0 to 5 years. There are children that have grown up in that setting who then come up to become youths. Now, these youths come out and then they become ambassadors. These youths are the ones that come out to advocate for things like I'm doing currently. So now you go across several underserved communities, across several coastal communities, displaced children. So how can youths serve as, like I said, we come on here and then we become ambassadors, we become advocates, we go to settings, we ask them, okay, this is what I see, because it's not a one size fits all. Across several coastal communities, several different things happen, several factors affect them. Sure. So now if individual youths come and they are context specific. So in my community, we are being affected by malnutrition. In your community, we are being affected by... So early childhood is not defined on the basis of education alone. Sometimes it starts from pregnancy, birth, 0 to 5 years. So if each of those youths from those specific communities come out to advocate and say, okay, this is how it's happening in my community, then we best know how to nip it at the bud. So youth serving as advocates for their community, youths coming to speak out to say, okay, this is what we are experiencing in our communities. Not just sitting and saying, oh, the governments will fund it. But sometimes youth have to embrace it. We are serving as advocates. We are saying, okay, this is what is going on. This is how and where specifically we need funding. I think that's how youth can best.
The youth are always very critical stakeholders when it comes to pulling resources for early childhood and for whatever cause. I will come back to the audience and to ask one question. How do we amplify the voices of the youth when it comes to seeking funding for education, particularly ECD? So I just want you to have that thought before I come back with this question. But let's talk about the solution now.
Okay.
I'm going to Mr. Arome, our coordinator. We're trying to find solution. We've had a lot of germane issues, especially with regards to funding early childhood development. Now, I want to ask you, what practical mechanisms are needed to transform the fragmented effort into a coordinated national movement? You are the national coordinator. And we've talked about how fragmented our approaches have been in the past. Now, I want you to kindly tell us, what do you think? What are the solutions? What are the practical mechanisms? You know, we want to see it happen. We want in the next couple of months to get to hear funders coming in to say, we want funding for ECD. We want to respond. We want to save the future of the next generation. Let's hear you, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I think one of the beauty of being the last person to respond to a question is that everyone would say something that will give you an answer, an expo to. So in a way, I am giraffing to get feedback. Now, I want to start from this point by humanizing the number. And when we talk about early childhood development, and I'll build on this down to what we do in Moving Mind Alliance. When we talk about education, we talk about the number. 1,000 out-of-school children in Maiduguri, 1,000 out-of-school children in Lagos, 10,000 in Kavanshan, and all of that. When we talk about crisis, we talk about 3.6 million people being displaced in Maiduguri. When we talk about children in emergency and humanitarian context, we are saying 4.9 million children being displaced and are in need of urgent, necessary attention to issues that has to do with their development. Now, we also talked about how development response in Nigeria currently, that's humanitarian and development response, 1% of it is what is being channeled to early childhood development. Now, these are the numbers, but I want to humanize that particular number. This is to tell you that for every child we refuse to take care of, we risk the chance of losing an $80. Now, for every child that we ignore, when that child was a baby, when a woman conceived, we risk the chance of building a stronger economy that the world is talking about.
Sure.
We risk the chance of having a Dangote who will build the largest refinery in the world or in Africa, one of the largest in the world. Now, Dangote is going everywhere around Africa and the world investing. Now, for every child we refuse to take care of, that is one thing that we are losing. Now, for the private sector, for every child we refuse to take care of, or we refuse to make a deliberate investment to their growth and development at 0 to 8, this is what we stand to lose. We stand to lose a generation of people that will not have that, that have a low attention to details. Sure. Now we are talking about the Olodo movement and Olodo uprising. Now, we should not blame the Gen Z. Why are we blaming the Gen Z? When we did not pay attention to caregiving at the time that we need to pay attention to caregiving. Why are we blaming the people, now there is, some time ago I was talking with a friend and we got talking about Gen Z and what is happening within the context, how a Gen Z will send a resignation letter and said, you know what, HR, this work is putting so much pressure on my mental health. You know what, I am out, peace out, I'm doing this. And she was complaining and I said, wait, but we need to also narrow this down to what happened to when this person was growing up. Yes. If the brain developed between 0 to 8 years old, the most important part of a child, of a man's life, is that particular time. So we lose that chance of building that person that we needed to build at the time that we needed to build that particular generation. So for us at Moving Mind Alliance, and tying that to the question, is we are bringing all the stakeholders together. We are bringing myriads of different stakeholders together to begin to prioritize the conversation about early childhood development in emergency context, in humanitarian context. And why is this important? If we don't do anything, then we risk the chance of losing a generation. Now, what can we do? And what can everybody do? Now, we have talked about the problem. We have talked about what government will not do, what government will do. And the government, sincerely, government is doing so well. Now, this is a time for us to act. We are saying that private sector should, instead of just rolling out corporate social responsibility without proper monitoring and evaluation, this is time to start paying attention to what is my 5 naira doing, knowing that the 5 naira that I'm spending on early childhood development will help me to build a stronger corporate, will help me to build a stronger company or a stronger organization in the days to come. Now, the media agencies. Now, we have several reportage around crisis context, but who is talking about the children in crisis context? Nobody is telling their story. Nobody is telling the story of how a child in an IDP camp is being raped. Nobody is telling the story of how a child of 5 years old or 6 years old have to walk all the way from Cameroon down to Abuja to find a safe haven where to lay his or her head. Nobody is talking about that. Media is doing something great about that. And that's why for us as Moving Mind Alliance, we came up with the initiative that we are bringing together different media organizations to report around children in humanitarian context. Now, bringing it back to the government. Now, this is where sometimes most of the fight comes. That government is not doing. Government is doing something. But sometimes there is fragmentation in government response. And my plea to the private sector the public sector stakeholder in the house is, this is time for us to be deliberate about a generation. Can we begin to look at the budget we have in the different ministries and departments and agencies of government to see how can we harmonize the budget allocations we have for early childhood development, and how can we begin to report, have a consolidated reporting approach to investment in early childhood development so that we can actually know the number and what the government is doing. And what can we do as individuals? Every one of us, you may say that it's not your fault, it's not your problem, it's not, I don't care about what is happening to a child in Maiduguri. But trust me, if you are traveling from here to Abuja by road, you will be praying to God to get to Abuja safely.
Exactly.
Why? It is because there was a generation that that refused to pay attention to a child to grow properly. Now we can no longer travel because of insecurity, because of the fear of being kidnapped. Instead of rolling that naira, God forbid none of you will be kidnapped. Instead of rolling that millions of naira to pay as ransom, why don't you think of your 1 naira can be something great that can help organizations that are programming around early childhood development in crisis to actually program well and bring children, give them a proper foundation, because life begins at 0 to 8.
All right, thank you very much. As we conclude this discussion, I'll be giving you 30 seconds each. And I want you to look at the audience. We have great individuals in the hall. Now, assuming each of them have $1 billion, each of them have $1 billion, I want you to give them one advice. I will start from you again. If each of them have $1 billion, I want you to advise them.
In 30 seconds, if each of them have $1 billion, I want to dollarize it. Save the Children is on this panel. Sterling One Foundation is on this panel. We are partnering with IRC. We are partnering with other organizations. It is time to roll these finances, this money, into early childhood development. If we don't do that, we stand the chance of losing a generation. You stand the chance of losing your company, and we stand the chance of not even having a country.
Thank you very much. Let's hear from our youth ambassador. If they have 1 billion, advise them.
We do have 1 billion. So I believe my advice as a youth ambassador will be investing in youths. Now, I say this because one of the initiatives of Theirworld is having this first ever international summit for financing early childhood development. Now, how that works is that there are youths across communities, and then this youth comes and we advocate for these things. So my advice would be investing in youths who care, investing in these certain communities. We could have communal hubs all the organizations seated here would have communal hubs where there are people in those context-specific communities that actually nip the several problems that are associated with early childhood, not just having education. We talk about the maternal care, we talk about the prenatal care from birth to the development. So yes, investing in the youths, investing in the children, investing from birth to the early development stage.
Thank you. Let's hear from Tobi.
Okay, I would say use the funding or the amount available as catalytic funding. So what does that mean? Simply means identify pilots or solutions that have already worked and scale them, invest in data and evidence. Samuel shared that basically the private sector needs information and awareness and things like that. And one thing that is missing in our interventions or the work that we do is verifiable data, and evidence. So invest in that, and then also use the amount to coordinate. So it's not just about using one person's 1 billion, but then having a pool of money and shared responsibility and accountability towards early childhood development. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from Madam Zara.
There's a story that to answer the question. So once upon a time, I was sent to speak like this, but to another group, and they were, talking about governance and corruption and what have you, and how do we get Nigeria to move ahead? And I said, ECD will definitely reduce corruption. This is debatable. I'm not saying you must take it. And the hall was quiet. And someone asked me, how do you align the two? And I said, I believe corruption is a function of greed. And when there's access, and access at the beginning, then you have the quality of life that you need. That's the positivity that I was talking about. The second thing I want to talk about is partnerships. We cannot do it alone. So yes, there's the 1 billion. But what do we do with the 1 billion is how we come together to divide or distribute roles and be accountable to those roles to ensure that the purpose is actualized. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that very insightful response. Let's come to Sterling One Foundation. Your billion, if they have $1 billion.
Okay.
Advice.
Okay. $1 billion sounds like $1 billion.
$1 billion.
It's $1 billion. Sounds like a very big amount of money. And I understand that the businesses are interested in figures and returns. So there's a Nobel winner, James Ekman. I think he estimated an annual return on ECD investment to be around 7 to 13%. So if you do that calculation, you should be getting something around $130 million. But beyond that, you also have other values attached to it. You spend less on security, securing you have peace of mind. Your environment is safe. You have a very good market to buy your product. You have a very good workforce. And you also, for the nation and the continent, you have productive humans. I think that is sufficient value for 1 billion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, can we give our panelists a round of applause? Now I'll give you an opportunity to ask questions, like 3 questions, in less than 5 minutes. We want to answer all those questions. If you have a question, let me see your hands. Each of the row, let me give you one opportunity. Who is asking question here? 1. 2, I'm trying to single out those who will be asking questions. Okay, nobody from the, then the last person there. So quickly, let's start with you, sir. They'll come to you.
That one is general. But I'm sorry for raising the question here. There is the phobia that we cannot get support except if we pass through consultants. In my state, we've been trying over the years, but the more we try, the more our application is rejected. So we need clarification. So please put us through. Then the second borders on the fact that we have been experiencing over the years, even though if we get support for a particular course, like a early childhood education, the final decision lies with the state government. It is possible for the state government to divert the money or to wire the money to another course. Maybe you can shed light on this for us. Thank you.
So, we don't have any of the government persons on this panel. However, did you hear the question clearly? Mr. Samuel.
So I think where the handshake should start is with bringing all the stakeholders together to understand the project or the idea or the change you want to make. 2 is introducing a high level of transparency and accountability into that funding. I know that Lagos State government had a partnership with Education Outcomes Fund recently. And there is a structure around how that funding should be used. As a matter of fact, it is outcome-based, which means that if you don't get outcome, you don't get paid. So I think a model like that can help address some of this. And this is also speaking to everyone or individuals, organizations wanting to invest with the state. You may not strictly apply that model, but something close to it in such a way that you're intentional about getting value for every kobo you put into a project. The second thing I also want to highlight is
2 seconds.
Okay. The quality of the intervention you are proposing is also very important because that is what wins the grant for you. And what I think about people getting consultant is because they cannot really do the technical work. So they prefer to get someone with that capacity to manage that process. But it'd be good if you can have a proper handshake with existing system in each of these organizations, understand what they want, and try to work within the scope of their process. I think that will help.
Thank you.
Sorry, Peter.
What? Okay.
Just to quickly
1 second.
Yes, just to quickly respond to him. This opens an opportunity for us to collaborate, so we can talk after now to provide technical support for some of the public sector actors that want to learn peak skills in business development. I think it's something that we can work out that and see what we can do. Then again, on a final note on this question, is sometimes it's not about budgeting. It's also about budget release, how much is being released. We are looking for ambassadors, Moving Minds Alliance, Plan International, Save the Children, Sterling One. It's looking for public sector ambassadors who will sit inside some of the government agencies to tell us what is happening so that we can also advance this conversation. So you can be the eye in your office and we can work with you to see how we can push this narrative and achieve that particular objective.
No. Yeah. Okay. You want to say something? Quickly.
Just very quickly, the World Bank does not hire consultants for you, because the World Bank gives loans, and it gives loans to the government. So where you see or you hear that a consultant is coming, that consultant must have been recommended or requested by the state. And on wire the money through another channel, we should be, that's why we have the stakeholders engagement. We promote engaging with stakeholders a lot so that everybody is informed of what we plan to do and how these investments are going to be done.
All right, thank you very much. Quickly, let's have the second and the third question, and then we close this session. Let's hear from you. Please, let's give her the mic.
Okay, thank you very much for the session. I'm Howlat from Smart Start Educational Services. So before this session, I was going to even ask the previous panelist session that much ado was given to foundational learning, but not emphasis on early childhood education investment. So I was very happy when I heard you talk about people talking about investments. Nobody's talking about the foundational level itself, which the core remains the early years education. Grateful for the insight shared. The plan lady talked about a multi-sectoral involvement, and that is very key. Most time we think intervention is just about teaching them literacy, numeracy, but there's more to it, because as the saying goes, it takes two to tango. So having all the partners enlisted, the health sectors, the school, the community, where do we leave the parents? Because the parents, it is very key for us to enlighten the parents, because this is where some of the, should I say, developed communities, where they get their strength from. They ensure that parents, regardless of whether we are working in suburbs or we are working in remote or urban cities, we need to ensure that parents are involved. Because if they do not see the big picture of what early childhood education is about, how it will impact in their children's life, how we will take the children not to toe the line they are, believe it or not, the communal crisis, family problem, violence in the homes is a fallout of the fact that the early years education, there was a gap in teaching the children what they need to learn beyond numeracy and literacy. So what investment are we doing towards ensuring that we continue that education, parent education? It is very important. Otherwise, it will be, we are pouring water into baskets. Thank you very much.
Thank you for speaking to all of us. I don't think that is directly a question, but I think you have shed so much light. But it's something that, pardon?
Yeah, I can answer just quickly.
Okay. So yes, like you, she mentioned particularly about what effort is being made, right? So maybe you can quickly, but I will also want to, while you speak, okay, we don't have time. Okay, so just go ahead.
So just to say that actually working with parents and caregivers is one of the best buys when it comes to early childhood development investment. So you are right. And it's part of the interventions that I mentioned earlier as one of the things or one of the activities that should be invested in. Because as you rightly mentioned, parents and caregivers are the first contact of the child. And research has shown over and over again that it is one of the best buys. So when you're looking at what should be invested in, working with parents and caregivers should be, should be foremost in it before we even talk about the other multi-sectoral supports that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have the last question quickly.
Is it from the back here?
No, we had three. We had three questions. Let's hear from her first.
Thank you. So that's directly to the question you had asked about how youth, you said you're throwing it to us. I want to answer that. Is that okay? All
Very
right.
beautiful.
So I wanted to highlight something very important. Firstly, I would like to, when I look at this room, I don't know how many young people are here below the age of 30. That is where I'm starting from, because young people are often missing in conversations that concerns them, because we are the future. The Gen Zs are actually the future. So we need to have them mixed with people like the older generations so that we can hear and contribute, because I think that we can tell our stories better, especially when we highlighted something about, the workplace and how you resign. I think we can get to answer that question better. Then I also want to say that there is something called trust that I see missing when it comes to applying to fellowships, or I know young people have to volunteer or build track records that could show the private enterprise that they can actually trust them to deliver, because these are the people that are going to carry out the advocacy. So, but that trust often miss in workplaces, in organizations, where we feel like the older people need to start trusting, because without trust, there will be no collaboration and there will be no future. So I think that trust is a very important segment is a very important truth that is missing in today's conversation as well. Then lastly would be on raising awareness. Young people do a lot of things by spoken word poetry, writing stories, publishing, just a lot of things on social media, blogging. They tell these stories in different ways. So I feel like while we sit down at the table, looking at the policy papers and consultations, we should also start looking at the artistic aspect of it, because we're going to find strong elements of truth in those other like in the arts of young people. So that's my contribution.
Thank you very much. Give me a round of applause, please. I think the last question was supposed to be my own question. I know you want to take over the mic. That's fine. I will give one bonus question last at the back. Sorry, please. Because she has answered my question, so I will give you that chance. So let's hear from you quickly. In 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, 2 minutes. I hope I can do it in 2 minutes. If you look just in front of you there, you see the KEDA banner, Youth Vanguards for Education. And it's meant for that purpose specifically. KEDA has been training youths year in, last year, and they are supposed to advocate for education quality in their communities. And they're already doing that. We're in our second cohort. And so please follow up and see if you can be part of that movement. I think the second point I want to make is to these state commissioners that are here. I'll just remind them of the tone I set at the beginning. Please, 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 when people come to you, let them know that this is what you are doing right now, and what you need to achieve is scale to reach more, not 1,000 different projects that are reaching 10 people. What you want to do is to aggregate and reach all children in your state. And you know those numbers. Please emphasize that with them. And that's the trend worldwide right now, whether it's ECCD or any level. Also, we must be honest with ourselves. Let community take over the education of their children. Free education is a fluke. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. As we have concluded this conversation, and I want to say this. This is a call for action. We cannot stop investing in early childhood development, because the cost of not investing far outweighs the cost of investing. So let's take the action now. Please, let's give them a round of applause as they go back to their seat. Thank you.
Can we please do better? Put our hands together for the panelists and the very interesting conversations that just happened. Okay, we have come to the very last part of the session today. And before we go, we have something that is the most critical thing that I would like to do today. Please, can I have everybody's attention? Right, we just finished the conversation on early childhood education. And I know we've talked about youth and other things, but I want us to bring it back down again to the early childhood conversations. And I want everybody here to look at the person sitting beside you and ask the person, what are you going to do going forward? That is what we are going to be talking about right now. We want the organizations in the room. We want the CS organizations, we want the private sector, we want the public sector, we want philanthropists, we want collaborations like BCE, like Moving Minds. We want people to actually now commit to doing something, not just sitting and listening and contributing good words and speaking very good lingua. We have come to the point in the session where people will collect the microphone from me and say what you are going to do about early childhood education. Whether it's from the government to say you're going to begin to include that in your budgetary considerations, or you have started doing something and you're going to talk to us about how you intend to scale. All right? Are we together? Are you with me? Oh, you're not with me? Well, you don't really have a choice, do you? Right? You have to be with me. So we are going to be passing the microphone around. And I want everyone to begin to say something. What you have been doing about early childhood education, what you think is necessary for us to do, whether as government or private sector or CSOs, for this cause. We have to pay attention to the foundation of our children. What are we teaching our children? It's very concerning to me because I have little kids as well. What are they really learning? What they are learning, does it give them the opportunities to stand with their mates in other countries? All right, so I need ushers to help me with the mics. Where are the ushers?
While I was talking that there is a good partnership between the two. So, and in my ministry, we have Department of Basic. There is a director there. There is another one for secondary education. So that person who is in charge of basic is also looking at the early child learning group. So what is there is, we are not going to tell people that those little children are not part of our responsibility, because we realized that is why we have made it very, very important that we perform a good supervision over whatever the private sector is doing, because it is within that private schools, we have a lot of them, unlike the public. But still, my governor will always tell us, I am not working for Abia State alone. I'm working Abia Indigenes. I am working for everybody who is in Abia State. All of them are Abians. If you look at our school system generally, you know where we are. So it is holistic and it's comprehensive.
Okay, Ma, so can you tell us what you're committing to early childhood education? Because you have said about education as a whole, but we want to narrow it down to the early childhood.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes,
we are not excluding it in what we are doing. It's completely, whenever you are talking about education at any level and at any class, the state is on top of it. And in Abia State, we have tertiary different from basic and secondary. So why do we have to do that? It's just for us to catch each group. We are not excluding or omitting any group.
All right, thank you very much, Mark. Can we put our hands together for her? I think we have a hand at the back. Excuse me. So she mentioned supervision. We have to make sure that we supervise all the conversations, all the activities properly.
Thank you so much. I'm beginning to think that it's probably important to now have the Ministry of Early Childhood Education. So thank you so much. I think that the entire sessions we've had today have been honestly very useful. And I wonder if maybe instead of calling us Business Coalition for Education, we should be Business Coalition for Education Outcomes, because everything that has to do with education is long-term. And I'm hoping that the business leaders here are looking at this as not just hard infrastructure, but soft infrastructure. And then there are many categories of children that we can support. There are children that are in school that we need our support. There are children that are in school and at risk. Then there are of getting out, and there are children that are out of school. And then there are children who need career pathways. And then there are children, all of them, who need not just early childhood education foundations, but also things like financial literacy. Here's my commitment. I have been working on social and emotional learning because you can educate the head and the heart will be gone. He talked a lot about mindset, and when he was talking, it resonates very much. Whatever you do with respect to academics will never match enough of what that human being needs to be able to thrive in their life. Whether it's managing the difficult conditions that they have, understanding how to build the relationships, persevering, resilience, and all of those things that this young man has demonstrated. And he probably was fortunate because he has parents who looked at him that way and had a very strong sense of safety, a strong sense of belonging, just feeling that those things, helping him to groom himself. So social and emotional learning is a very strong part of what I do. We already run an impact lab in partnership with Seed Foundation. And that impact lab, we're actually teaching children at the early childhood education their strong social and emotional learning skills. So we're committed to that. And we will support as many states as possible to deliver on it. Thank you.
Please, can we put our hands together for that? They said they will support as many states as possible. So please, we want to encourage all the states to collect their contacts to ensure that they can continue to have that collaboration.
All right. Thank you so much. My name is Idris. I am the founder of an academy here in Lagos, Creative Digital Technologies. So I work with youth a lot, and I also work with young people. I agree with what my brother said. But there's one thing government did. If you don't agree with me, it's fine. But since government took away discipline in schools, we've started having problems. The issues we are seeing now are the result of the compounded, problem since government took off discipline in school. If you agree with me, there is nothing you spend your time on to study. If you lack discipline, you can't do it well. Now they took discipline out. The result of those that graduated or that went to school without those discipline are the ones we are seeing now. In fact, there are some of the teachers training these kids that we are talking about. What do they want to transfer to them? What are the disciplinary action they want to transfer to these people that will allow them to learn or even, build a better early childhood, training or education? Another thing we did not take into account is the effect or the role of media. Most of these people you are saying they are out of school, or those that are even going to school, most of them have access to smartphones. A lot of informations are going on online now. Those that are, passing out good information, and those that are passing out the other side of the information.
Okay, thank you so much.
Are we thinking of a way to control
what are you
those things? My commitment, I've always done this, and I'm still doing this because I work with kids and I train them in tech. And the reason I was able to identify all this is the more we train some kids in all these things, lack of discipline is making them not even, be able to absorb some of these things and even think of the problem they have in their community.
Okay.
And that's my commitment. Thank you.
Much said about capacity building. I'm Howlat. Basically, we are into the early years education, capacity building for early years teachers. Over time, we've seen that some schools are committed. We work more with private schools. We see that they are committed to training their teachers. But again, the young man here talked about mindsets. Some of the teachers, their mindsets would not allow them take in new knowledge, and which is affecting their delivery. So if we are going to start any capacity building, I encourage, which we do that most often, with a mindset shift session. Because you will end up training these teachers and they go back, implementation is zero. This is part of the challenges we've had over time. So we encourage that as you train, there's need for measurement, there's need for quality assurance. And for us at SmartStart, we're also taking work towards with partnering with public schools, because we see that if these children in the creme de la creme, they are equipped with the knowledge they need, what happens to those in the underserved communities? That is the issue of the, what do you call it now? The discrepancy we have in our societies today. They will continuously become problem to our society. So there is need for us to partner with public schools so that we can help bridge this gap to an extent, one. Two, the teachers themselves needs to be oriented. Orientation beyond teaching them pedagogy or whatever skills for them to teach. We also need their mindsets to be re-engineered for them to deliver quality service. And Smarter Educational Services, we are here to work with public schools to ensure that this is also delivered. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We would like to just appreciate everybody that has committed to doing something towards childhood education. We will be rounding up the session right now. We've had a very enlightening time. Please, can you put your hands together for yourselves, for staying up till this time, for your contribution. The hand clap is for you. The hand clap is for you, right? And also, we want to appreciate all the state governments that were present. We thank you for coming all the way to Lagos State. And we especially want to appreciate Lagos State government as well for all you do for us, right? We want to appreciate the Sterling One Foundation as well. For putting all this together, and all the partners. We have so many partners from the public, the private sector, from CSO organizations. And right now, I'll be handing over the microphone to Dr. Lawal, who is also one of the key technical partners from CADA. He will be giving us the closing remark. Can we please put our hands together for Dr. Lawal?
Thank you. Thank you. I think that this is one of my best moments in education. I've been in the sector for close to 30 years. And standing in front of you and hearing Doctor tell me that education in Nigeria is free is very, very I love it, because for me that is a commitment. I love it that a government and public officer says that education is free in Nigeria. But maybe I didn't qualify it. Free quality education. And I know that it is the wish of Nigeria to do that. Some of the work we are doing is looking at the Constitution. Please go and check it out. You cannot sue any government of Nigeria for not providing you education. You cannot sue, whether at the federal or at the state. And Nigeria is one of the few countries where you cannot do that in this world. Go and find that out also. Another point is that you can sue parents for not taking their children to education in Nigeria. But you cannot sue government for not providing education, talk less of providing quality education. I think those are constitutional gaps that the youth advocates should be looking at. I want to say that we know very well that there are funding gaps. Basic education is with local government. Secondary education is for the state government. That funding gap exists and is creating problems in many states. And we are also working at different levels to see that that changes. Some of the things we are proposing is that let states take everything. So that when it is not working, we hold the state government responsible for it. So that the state government, I'll give you an example. Teachers in FCT are still going on strike. And our minister will say that it's not his responsibility. And if it happens in any state, they have the right to say that. But it's your state. And the funding gap is there. So please, free education is free. Free quality education is not free. I've rephrased my statement. So on behalf of Sterling One Foundation, I want to say a very big thank you to this very engaging interaction and commitment. We've all made commitments here to improve foundational learning, to improve ECCD, and to continue to work together in linking education and livelihood. Don't forget that tomorrow is going to be the opening ceremony, and you are honorably all invited to be at the opening ceremony, which will be starting tomorrow as early as 9 o'clock tomorrow. So we look forward to seeing you here. Once again, thank you very much to the rapporteurs. I know you've gotten so much. Thank you to the security, to the media crew, thank you very much, and to the state, thank you. To the sign language experts, thank you very much. And to the states, we are forever partners with you. Thank you, and have a nice evening. Bye-bye.